I can't do this.
Molly Cooper's plan was simple. Slip out the back door of the church before the I do. What she didn't plan. Tripping on her dress, falling into the street, seeing a black car with the door open, jumping inside thinking it was empty, and discovering that the car's owner was sitting on the other side, staring at her with a raised eyebrow, and a smile that was a mix of surprise and pure amusement. Interesting, he said, his voice deep and velvety. Didn't know brides were running away from churches, especially into my car. Before she could respond, the car started moving. Now, he added, leaning toward her, you're my problem. First things first. Hello, I'm Lena, the mind behind every story on this channel. And now on screen you're seeing comments from Carolyn and Marty. Thank you so much to everyone who commented. And tell me something. If you found out you were dating a mob boss, what would you do? Answer down below, and maybe your comment will appear in the next video. Chapter 1. Escape and Plea.
I need to hide.
15 minutes earlier, at the church, the situation was different. I was staring at my reflection in the dressing room mirror, and the only thing I could think about was that this wedding dress was the most beautiful and most suffocating thing I'd ever worn in my life. The fabric weighed on my shoulders as if it carried all my mother's expectations, all the Graham family's ambitions, all the weight of a future I'd never chosen. Hazel was behind me, adjusting the veil, and I could feel her gaze burning into my back. Molly, are you sure about this? Her voice came out low, almost a conspiratorial whisper. I turned to her, feeling my heart racing. Hazel, I can't marry Steve. I just can't. I don't love him. She crossed her arms. But your mom. My mom wants the alliance with the Graham family. I cut in, feeling my voice come out louder than I intended. I don't know what I want, but it's definitely not Steve. Hazel grabbed my shoulders firmly. Then run! Now! How? There are 200 people out there. Back door. Get out, grab a cab, disappear. I looked at the mirror again, at that version of me all wrapped up in tulle and empty promises. Okay, I'm doing this. Her smile was the most beautiful thing I'd seen all day. Finally, go. I'll hold off your mom as long as I can. I didn't have a plan beyond running. I went out the back door, and the fresh air hit my face like a slap of reality. And then, because the universe has a terrible sense of humor, I tripped on the damn hem of the dress. I fell to my knees on the sidewalk with a dull thud. The pain was immediate, and when I looked down, I saw blood staining the white fabric. Perfect. Damn it. I got up limping, and that's when I saw the black car parked a few yards ahead, with the back door open. The driver was distracted on the phone, his back to me. My brain decided that was a perfect hiding spot, just until Steve gave up looking. I jumped into the car, throwing myself onto the soft leather seat. My heart was beating so loud I was sure they could hear it blocks away. I pressed my hands against my chest, trying to control my breathing, and it was exactly at that moment that the door on the other side opened. I froze completely. A man entered the car with the ease of someone who owns the world. Impeccable black suit, dark hair slicked back, brown eyes that pierced through me with genuine surprise, and then a slow, dangerously amused smile curved his lips. Interesting. His voice was deep, velvety. Brides usually run from the church, not into my car. I was breathless. I thought the car was empty. Clearly it wasn't. He looked down. Are you bleeding? I followed his gaze to my scraped knee. I fell, running away. From whom? From my wedding. The laugh that came from him was low, incredulous. Ah, runaway bride. My favorite specialty. Your what? It was a joke. Pause. What's your name? Runaway bride. Molly Cooper. And yours? Vincent Mello. The way he said his own name carried weight. And why are you running from your wedding, Molly Cooper? Because I don't want to marry him. My mother forced me. The families arranged it. It's a business marriage, not a love one. I see. He leaned back, completely at ease. And you decided that inside my car would be the best hiding spot? Sorry, I'll get out. Molly, where are you? Panic hit me. I recognized that voice. It could only be Steve. Vincent looked out the window. Man in a tuxedo searching desperately? That's my fiancé. Ex-fiancé. He can't see me. Molly Cooper, you can't hide forever. I turned to Vincent and begged. Please don't tell him I'm here. Please don't say anything. I'm begging you. He studied me, clearly amused. You're begging me? Yes, I'm begging. Don't say anything. Let him pass. Please. And what do I get out of this? What? You invaded my car. You're asking me to lie for you. What's my compensation? I don't have anything. I ran away in just the dress. No wallet, no phone, no. Steve's voice cut through the air. Did you see a bride pass by here? The driver's voice responded calmly. No, sir. Sorry. If you do, Let me know. She's my fiancé. Of course, sir. I waited for the footsteps to fade before whispering, is he gone? Vincent was still looking out the window, still searching, but distant. Pause. You're terrible at running away, you know that? It's my first time. I've never run away from anything in my life. It shows. There was silence until it was broken again. So, Molly Cooper, what do we do now? You're not going to turn me in. Depends. Are you going to stay hidden in my car forever? No, I just need a place to go until Steve gives up looking. And you have that place. No. Family? My mom planned the wedding. She'll kill me. Friends? Hazel would try to help me, but Steve will look there first. Vincent fell silent, and then made a decision that seemed to amuse him. Okay what? I'll take you. Take me where? My hotel. You hide there until the ex-fiancé gives up. You'd do that? Why not? It's entertaining, and I'm rarely entertained. But you don't even know me. His smile widened. And you don't even know me. But you begged, and I have a weakness for desperate women in wedding dresses. Is that a joke? Maybe. Or maybe you're the first bride who jumped into my car. He turned. Louis, drive to the hotel. The driver turned around and his eyes widened. Vincent, there's a bride in the car. I know. She's a temporary passenger. Okay, this is new even for you. Drive. The car started moving. Reality started hitting me. I was in a car with a complete stranger going to a hotel. Wait, I don't know who you are. You could be a kidnapper, or worse. Vincent laughed. Worse than a kidnapper? A murderer. A trafficker, a predator. I'm many things, Molly Cooper, but runaway bride predator isn't one of them. But what do you do? Business, hotels, nightclubs, entertainment. That's a vague answer. It's a safe answer. I crossed my arms. You sound like a criminal. He didn't deny it. And you sound like a spoiled princess running from responsibilities. I'm not spoiled. I ran away from a forced marriage that your family arranged, that you accepted, until running away at the last minute. I was scared. My mother is intense, and the Graham family is powerful. I thought I had no choice. There's always a choice. Easy to say when you don't have a controlling mother. I had a controlling father. Worse. Something in his voice gave me chills. And what did you do? Took his place. How? Story for another day. He looked at me. For now, you stay at the hotel, hide, and we'll decide the next step tomorrow. What if Steve finds me? He won't. My hotel is discreet, and I'm very good at hiding things. Chills again. He was dangerous, but he was helping me. Why are you doing this? Vincent looked at me intensely. Because you begged, and because I have a weakness for desperate eyes. Pause. And because your story is interesting. Proper princess running from boring prince. Classic. I'm not a princess. Cooper family? Traditional, rich, you're a princess. You just didn't know it. And the smile was predatory. Big bad wolf, obviously. I swallowed hard. Great. Jumped from the castle into the wolf's den. But the wolf promised not to eat you. Yet? He laughed. Relax, princess. You're safe with me. I didn't know if I believed him, but I had no choice. Okay, until tomorrow. The next day, the car stopped at a VIP entrance that was nowhere near the main lobby. It was discreet, almost hidden. I got out of the car and looked around, seeing the luxury, but also something I couldn't identify, something dark and exclusive. This is different, I murmured. Vincent walked beside me. It's a private hotel for specific clients. Specific how? People who value discretion. Louis appeared behind us, and I realized he wasn't carrying anything because I literally had no luggage. Vincent, presidential suite? Yes. And send someone to get clothes for her. Size? He looked me up and down with a precision that made me blush. Small, comfortable, nothing formal. You don't need to. You're in a wedding dress. You need clothes. Okay, thank you. When Vincent opened the room door, I simply stopped. Enormous, incredible view of the city. King-size bed that seemed to float. Soaking tub that could fit 3 people. Luxury I'd never seen before. Not even in my own house. This is too much. My voice came out in an impressed whisper. It's what I have. He paused. Rest. Tomorrow we'll talk about the next steps. Vincent, thank you. Really. For not turning me in. For helping me. He looked at me, and something changed in his gaze. Something softer. You're welcome, princess. Pause. Lock the door. Not because of me, but because you don't know this world yet. What world? Mine. And trust me, you don't want to know it without a guide. He left, closing the door behind him. I stood there for a moment, processing everything that had happened, before throwing myself on the giant bed. The wedding dress crumpled completely beneath me, but I didn't care. What did I do? I whispered to the ceiling. Outside, Louis was waiting, arms crossed and an expression that Vincent knew very well. The expression of, you've completely lost your mind. Boss, are you crazy? Probably. You brought the Cooper family's daughter to the hotel. If Virginia Cooper finds out, she won't find out. Yet? Louis practically shouted in a whisper. Vincent, the Coopers are traditional, powerful, and the girl ran from the Graham. You know who the Grahams are? I do, and I don't care. Why are you doing this? Vincent was silent for a moment before answering. Because she begged, and because no one's ever begged me before. It was refreshing. You're bored, and using the girl as entertainment? Maybe. Or maybe she's more interesting than any woman I've met in years. You only talked to her for 20 minutes, and in those 20 minutes she was more real than anyone else in months. Vincent started walking down the hallway. Relax, Lewis. I'm just going to help her disappear until Graham gives up. Then she goes back to her life. Lewis followed him. Do you believe that? Vincent stopped, his hand on his own door handle. I have to believe it, because if I don't, it means I'm going to get attached, and I don't get attached. Good luck with that, boss. Vincent entered the room, closed the door, and for the first time in a long time, smiled for real. A bride had jumped into his car running from a wedding. She had begged with those desperate, honest eyes. And he, Vincent Mello, the man who never got involved, who never let anyone in, had decided to help. Maybe Louis was right. Maybe he really was crazy. But as he took off his jacket and looked out the window at the lit city below, Vincent realized he didn't care. Molly Cooper had entered his life like a hurricane of white tulle and beautiful desperation, and he had the feeling that nothing would ever be the same. Chapter 2. Next Morning and Reality.
You're safe here.
I know.
I woke up with my whole body aching, and the strange feeling that I'd slept inside an expensive cloud. It took me a few seconds to remember where I was, and when the memory came back, all the craziness from the day before hit me at once. The wedding, the escape, the car, Vincent Mello. I had slept in a wedding dress. I sat up in the giant bed and looked around the presidential suite in the morning light. It was even more impressive than it had seemed the night before, with sunlight coming through the enormous windows and illuminating every luxurious detail. For a moment, I wondered if I'd dreamed it all, but then I looked down and saw the wrinkled white fabric stained with dried blood on the knee and knew it was real. Everything was absurdly real. A soft knock on the door made me jump out of bed. My heart immediately raced, that panic instinct still fresh. I walked to the door slowly, hesitant, and when I opened it, there was no one there, just an elegant cart with breakfast and several bags of clothes carefully arranged. On top of the breakfast tray, there was a handwritten note in elegant masculine handwriting. Get dressed. Breakfast in 30 minutes. Penthouse. V. I grabbed the clothes and almost laughed at the precision. Jeans in my exact size. Simple but clearly expensive blouse. Even the lingerie was perfect. How had he known my size so accurately? That should scare me, but instead it only made me curious. I took the longest bath of my life in that absurd tub, letting the hot water wash away the stress and dried blood. When I finally got dressed and looked in the mirror, I almost didn't recognize myself. No bridal makeup, no elaborate hairstyle, no suffocating dress. Just me, Molly Cooper in jeans and a white blouse, looking freer than I'd felt in years. 30 minutes later, I followed the vague instructions of Penthouse and found the private elevator that went straight to the top floor. When the doors opened, I was breathless. The penthouse was even more impressive than the room. All glass, with a 360-degree view of the city, minimalist but clearly very expensive decor, and in the center of everything, a table set for breakfast. And Vincent Mello, sitting calmly, reading a newspaper as if having a runaway bride hidden in his hotel was the most normal thing in the world. He looked up when he heard me arrive, and that slow, dangerous smile curved his lips. Sleep well, princess? Stop calling me princess, I replied, but without much conviction in my voice. Impossible. It's what you are. He gestured to the chair across from him. Sit, eat. We need to talk. I sat down, nervous, grabbing a cup of coffee just to have something to do with my hands. About. Vincent folded the newspaper with deliberate calm, and then turned it toward me. About the fact that you're in the headlines. My stomach dropped. The front page had a huge photo of me leaving the church, the dress half torn, an expression of pure panic on my face. The headline screamed in bold letters, Cooper heiress flees wedding with Graham scandal. No, how did they? My voice came out strangled. Paparazzi, there's always some. Vincent spoke with that irritating calm. Your mother gave an interview. I closed my eyes, already imagining the disaster. What did she say? He took the newspaper back and read aloud. Molly is going through a difficult time. We ask for privacy while we resolve the situation as a family. Translation, she wants to drag me back. I practically screamed. Probably. And Steve also gave an interview. I felt fear tighten in my chest. What did he say? Vincent continued reading, and there was a touch of amusement in his voice. Molly and I had a misunderstanding. I'm sure we'll work it out. Our love is strong. Love? I was on my feet without even realizing when I'd stood up. He doesn't even love me. He just wants the reputation, obviously. But the public loves a story of true love overcoming obstacles. Vincent leaned back in his chair, watching my reaction with that intensity that left me breathless. And now, my voice came out smaller, more vulnerable. Now you stay here, hidden, until you decide the next step. For how long? However long you need. I sat down again, my head spinning. But my work, my life, I can't just disappear. You already disappeared. When you jumped into my car, he paused, his dark eyes fixed on me. The question is, do you want to go back to the life you had? Or do you want to start a new one? The question hung in the air between us, heavy with possibilities. I don't know. Then figure it out. Meanwhile, you're safe here. Before I could respond, the penthouse door opened and Louis walked in with a tablet in his hand, a serious expression on his face. When he saw me, he waved briefly before turning to Vincent. Boss, Virginia Cooper hired a private investigator to find Molly. I felt panic hit me again. My mom hired an investigator? Louis looked at me with something that seemed like sympathy. And Steve too. Apparently they're desperate. Vincent didn't seem the least bit worried. They won't find her. The hotel is a ghost. I frowned. Ghost how? No public records. Clients pay in cash, no external cameras, invisible. The reality of that hit me slowly. That sounds very illegal. Louis let out a short laugh. Oh, honey, illegal is our middle name, Louis. Vincent's voice carried a warning. What? She's going to find out eventually. Louis turned to me with a smile. The boss here runs an operation that makes the government look amateur at secrecy. I looked from Louis to Vincent, feeling something cold settle in my stomach. Operation of what, exactly? Vincent sighed, but didn't seem particularly bothered about being exposed. Adult entertainment. Legal, but morally questionable. Casinos, among other things. The truth hit me like a punch. You are a criminal. Technically, no. Morally, debatable. He leaned forward, and suddenly the space between us seemed smaller. But I've never heard anyone who didn't deserve it. Louis practically jumped with enthusiasm. He's kind of like Robin Hood. If Robin Hood wore Armani and had a Ferrari. Louis, you have work to do. Vincent's voice was firm now. I'm just helping ease the tension. Louis winked at me. Relax. He looks dangerous, but he's a kitten when he wants to be. Louis! Louis laughed and left, still humming something that sounded suspiciously like wedding music. I sat there processing everything, the reality of the situation finally hitting me with full force. I'm hiding in a hotel owned by a mob boss. Technically, yes. Problem? I should have a problem. I should be terrified. I should be running for the door. But instead, all I could say was, I should have a problem, but, strangely, I feel safe? Vincent looked at me for a long moment, and something changed in his expression, something softer. Because you are. No one touches you while you're here. Why? Why do you care? The silence that followed was charged with a different tension. Electric and dangerous. When he finally responded, his voice came out lower. Because you begged, and because something about you intrigues me. My heart raced. Intrigues how? I want to understand why a proper princess jumped into a stranger's car instead of calling her rich family to solve the problem. He paused, his eyes never leaving mine. You're braver than you think, or more desperate. I'm still deciding which. Maybe both. Maybe. We stayed there, looking at each other across the breakfast table, and for the first time since I'd woken up, I felt something beyond fear. I felt curiosity, attraction, the dangerous feeling that I'd jumped from one problem straight into another, completely different one. But the difference was that this problem had penetrating brown eyes and a smile that made my stomach flip, and I wasn't sure I wanted to run away this time. Molly wasn't sure yet, but I think Vincent already had his absolute certainty. Or am I wrong? Chapter 3. Getting to know his world.
You understand me.
The following days turned into a strange and unexpectedly comfortable routine. I should be desperate to leave. I should be planning my escape. I should be doing anything other than settling into life inside that luxurious and morally questionable hotel. But Vincent Mello had a way of making everything seem natural. He made a point of entertaining me, and I didn't know if it was out of kindness or if it was because he really enjoyed my company. Maybe both. Dinners at the penthouse became a daily ritual, with conversations that stretched for hours. We talked about everything and nothing, from politics to old movies, from cheap philosophy to bad jokes. He was surprisingly funny when he wanted to be, with a dry, sharp humor that caught me off guard and made me laugh until my stomach hurt. On the third day, he showed me the hotel's private library, and I almost cried with happiness. It was a hidden space on the 10th floor, all lined in dark wood, with shelves that went from floor to ceiling, and a sliding ladder that looked like something out of a classic movie. Thousands of books, some rare, some old, all perfectly organized. How did you know I love books? I asked, running my fingers over the spines with reverence. Vincent was leaning against the door, watching me with that intensity that was already becoming familiar. I didn't know, but now I do. He paused. You can come here whenever you want. The library is yours. My heart did a strange leap in my chest. Thank you. He also let me explore the penthouse and the private terrace when I needed air, always with Louis discreetly nearby to ensure my safety. And whenever I mentioned I needed something, anything, Vincent simply sent Louis to get it. Books, chocolates, even a specific hoodie I'd casually mentioned I used to wear at home. Everything appeared like magic. You don't need to do all this, I said one night, after Louis brought my favorite brand of tea that I'd only mentioned once. I know, Vincent replied simply, but I want to. It was the night of the 5th day when everything changed. Or maybe it didn't change. Maybe it just became clearer what was already happening beneath the surface. We were on the penthouse's private terrace, the lit city stretching below us like an ocean of lights. Vincent had brought wine, something expensive I couldn't pronounce the name of, and we were sitting in comfortable armchairs, just existing in the same space. The silence was pleasant, but there was something hovering in the air, something unspoken that needed to be addressed. Why are you doing this? The question came out before I could think better of it. Helping me, without asking for anything in return? Vincent took a sip of wine, his eyes fixed on the city lights. Who said I didn't ask for anything? My stomach tightened. Did you? He finally looked at me, and there was something vulnerable in that look I'd never seen before. Company. I live alone in this hotel. It's lonely. You have Louis. Louis is my brother. It's not the same thing. He swirled the wine glass between his fingers. And you're different from everyone I know. Different how? Honest. Real. You don't want anything from me except a hiding place. I thought about that for a moment. And that's good? It's refreshing. The women I know always want something. Money, status, power. You just want to escape from a life you didn't choose. And you understand that? My voice came out lower, more intimate. Vincent was silent for a long moment, and when he finally spoke, there was a darkness in his voice that made me shiver, more than you can imagine. My father forced me into this life. I didn't choose to be this, but you took his place. You said so, because it was him or me, and I chose to survive. He took another sip of wine, and I could see the tension in his shoulders. My father built this empire, but he did it by stepping on anyone who got in the way, including me. He molded me to be the perfect successor, without ever asking if that's what I wanted. What happened to him? He died. Heart attack. Vincent laughed, but it was a sound without humor. Convenient for me, less convenient for him. You don't miss him? No, he was cruel, controlling. Like your mother, but worse. The comparison hit me, and suddenly it all made sense. Why he helped me, why he understood. So we're alike. We are. Two fugitives from lives we didn't want. I looked at him, really looked, and saw not just the dangerous, powerful man who commanded a morally questionable empire. I saw someone who had fought for his own choices, who had survived a father who sounded as terrible as my mother was controlling. But you built an empire. I just ran. Vincent leaned forward, and suddenly the space between us seemed smaller, more charged. Running is the first step. Building comes after. Pause. And maybe I'll help you build too. Why? Because I like seeing people win, especially when they have the courage to run first. The moment became charged. Electric. I could feel my heart beating faster, could feel the heat rising up my face. There was something happening between us, something I didn't know how to name, but that scared me and attracted me at the same time. I needed to change the subject before I did something stupid. Do you have a girlfriend? Wife? Vincent leaned back again, breaking the tension, and something that looked like relief and disappointment crossed his face. No, I don't do relationships. Why? Because in my world, relationships are weaknesses, and weaknesses get you killed. The coldness with which he said that broke me a little. That's sad. It's realistic. He looked at me again. And you? Besides Steve? A few boyfriends. Nothing serious. My mother always interfered. I sighed. She had opinions about everything, about who I dated, what I wore, what career I should follow. Sometimes I feel like I was never really myself. And now? The question came softly. Here, hidden from the world. Away from your mother. Who are you? The question caught me off guard. I don't know. I'm still figuring it out. Vincent smiled, and it was a genuine smile, without the usual irony. Good. That means you're on the right track. We fell silent again, but this time it was more comfortable. I took a sip of wine, and let the question that had been tormenting me finally come out. Do you think she'll forgive me, my mother, for running away? Eventually, but first she'll try to control you again. It's what people like Virginia Cooper do. They don't know how to love without controlling. The truth of that hurt. What if I don't want to be controlled? Vincent looked at me with that intensity that made my stomach flip. Then you fight, like I fought. But I don't know how to fight. My voice came out small, vulnerable. I'll teach you. My heart raced. You'd do that? I'm already doing it. Hiding you, protecting you, giving you time to decide the next step. He paused. But when you decide, I'll help you execute it. The tears came without warning, tears of gratitude and relief, and something else I couldn't name. Thank you, Vincent. He moved so fast I didn't even see it. Suddenly he was kneeling in front of my chair, his large, warm hand curved against my face, his thumb wiping away the tears with a gentleness that completely contrasted with everything I knew about him. You're welcome, princess. His touch burned. I could feel the heat radiating from his palm against my cheek, could see the intensity in those dark eyes studying me as if I were something precious and fragile. My breath caught in my throat. The moment stretched, loaded with possibilities. I could see in his gaze that he wanted to kiss me, could feel it in the way his fingers curved slightly against my skin, and God, I wanted him to do it. But then something changed. Vincent pulled back, his hand leaving my face, and the cold night air filled the space where his warmth had been. He stood up and returned to his own chair, creating safe distance between us. We both knew what had almost happened. We both knew we'd pulled back, and neither of us talked about it. Somewhere on the other side of the city, in an elegant, cold office, Steve Graham was having a very different conversation. He was sitting behind the enormous desk, his fingers drumming impatiently on the mahogany surface, while the private investigator shifted uncomfortably in the chair across from him. She has to be somewhere, Steve practically shouted. The investigator flipped through his notes with a defeated expression. Mr. Graham, she's disappeared completely. No banking trails, no credit card use. No traceable phone calls. Impossible! She's not that smart. That's when Virginia Cooper spoke from the armchair in the corner of the office, where she'd been listening in silence. Her voice was cold and calculated. Molly is very smart, Steve, but impulsive. She'll make a mistake eventually. The investigator looked between the two. And when she does, Virginia stood up, walking to the window with the upright, controlled posture that defined her every movement. We find her and bring her back. Steve stood up too, fists clenched. And I marry her. Doesn't matter if she wants to or not. Virginia looked at him with something that could be approval or contempt. It was hard to tell. Excellent. We're in agreement then. Neither of them mentioned love. Neither of them mentioned what Molly wanted. To them, she was a piece on a chessboard, something to be recovered and controlled. And while they planned in their cold, calculated offices, I was on a terrace under the stars, feeling for the first time in my life that maybe, just maybe, I had found someone who saw me as more than a piece in someone else's game. Chapter 4, Lewis and Humor.
Stay close to me.
Risky outing. A week had passed, and I was starting to feel the effects of being trapped, even if in a 5-star prison. The room was beautiful. The penthouse was incredible. The library was my personal paradise. But there was something in me that was starting to feel claustrophobic. I needed air, movement, anything that wasn't those same luxurious walls. That's when Louis showed up at my room door with a steaming pizza box in his hands, and that mischievous smile I was already learning to recognize. "Delivery," he announced, entering without waiting for an invitation. I was lying on the bed with a book, but the sight of the pizza box made me sit up immediately. "Luis, you brought normal food. The boss was feeding you caviar and truffles. Figured you needed real pizza." He opened the box on the bed, and the smell of melted cheese and baked dough filled the room. I grabbed a slice and bit into it, closing my eyes in pure pleasure. "This is so much better." Louis threw himself in the armchair next to the bed with his own slice. "See? I'm better than Vincent. Don't tell him," I said between bites. "Our secret." He winked, and then tilted his head, studying me with those perceptive eyes. "So you and the boss, huh?" I almost choked on the pizza. "Me and the boss, what?" "The heavy tension between you two. Even I feel it, and I'm notoriously oblivious to these things." I felt my face heat up. "There's no tension." Louis rolled his eyes dramatically. "Molly, please. I've seen how he looks at you, and how you look at him." "I don't look." "Yes, you do. With those, wow, the mob boss is hot eyes." He imitated a dreamy expression that made me throw a pillow at him. "I don't think that," I lied shamelessly. "Then you're blind, because the boss is objectively hot. Even I admit it, and I have high standards." Louis grabbed another slice, completely at ease. "But seriously, the boss likes you. A lot. He's never let anyone stay here this long." I stopped eating, processing this. "Because I have nowhere to go." "Lie." Louis looked at me seriously now. "He wants you here, because you make him smile. And the boss never smiles. He does smile. Before you? Never. Now. Every time he talks about you. Every time you enter a room. Every time someone mentions your name. That's big, Molly. You don't understand what that means." I fell silent, my heart beating faster. But his world is dangerous. It is. Very dangerous. Louis leaned forward, and there was something genuine in his gaze now. But when Vincent Mello protects someone, nothing touches that person. He'd move mountains, burn cities, destroy empires to keep you safe. That's who he is when he really cares. The words hung in the air between us, loaded with a weight I wasn't ready to carry. But before I could respond, before I could process what Lewis was saying, he'd already completely changed the subject, returning to the light humor that was his trademark. 2 days later, the feeling of being trapped had become unbearable. I found Vincent in the penthouse, where he was working on something on his laptop, and just blurted it out. I need to get out, even if just for an hour. He looked up from the computer, his expression immediately cautious. Too risky. Steve's still looking. Then take me somewhere he'd never go, I insisted, feeling the frustration grow. You have those places. Vincent was silent for a moment, clearly weighing his options. I have a private club, exclusive members. Steve would never get in. I felt a wave of hope. Perfect. Take me, but you stay with me, the whole time. The way he said it, with that deep, authoritative voice, made my stomach flip. Deal. The club was exactly the kind of place I imagined Vincent would frequent. It was hidden on a discreet side street. No sign, nothing indicating its existence. The entrance was through an unmarked black door, guarded by security who looked like they'd walked out of an action movie. When Vincent approached, they simply nodded and opened the door, not even checking ID. The interior was dark, chic, and completely exclusive. Low lighting and shades of red and gold, luxurious but sensual decor, and an atmosphere that was simultaneously sophisticated and provocative. There was something in the air, an energy I'd never felt before, something adult and intense and completely new to me. This is different, I murmured, looking around with wide eyes. Vincent walked beside me, his hand resting lightly on my back in a way that was both protective and possessive. It's an adult entertainment club. Legal, but intense. Intense how? Dancers, shows, games, nothing illegal, but provocative. As we walked further inside, I saw what he meant. There were dancers on elevated stages, their performances more art than anything explicit, but definitely sensual. There were gaming tables where large sums of money changed hands. There were shows happening in side rooms, live musicians, performers who defied gravity with impressive acrobatics. I've never been to a place like this, I admitted, fascinated by the completely new world unfolding before me. Vincent guided me to the VIP area, an elevated space with a view of the entire club but separated by velvet curtains. Doesn't surprise me. Pause. Stay close to me. We sat on a luxurious sofa, and almost immediately Louis appeared with drinks, a huge smile on his face. Welcome to the dark side, princess. Louis, where were you? Vincent asked, accepting one of the drinks. Checking security. All clear. No one suspicious. Louis turned to me, extending a glass of something that glowed golden. Enjoying it, I accepted the drink, still absorbing everything around me. It's very sensory. Wait until you see the main show. Acrobats. It'll blow your good girl mind. Louis threw himself on the sofa beside me. I'm not a good girl, I protested, even knowing it was useless. Louis burst out laughing. You ran away from a wedding and hid out with a mob boss. Okay, you're kind of rebellious, but you still have that never broke a rule in my life energy. I've broken lots of rules. Vincent turned to me, and there was amusement in his eyes. Like? I thought furiously, trying to find a convincing example. I once skipped class? Louis literally doubled over laughing. Skipped class? That's your big rebellion? I felt my face burn. It was bold at the time. Vincent was smiling now. That genuine smile Louis had said was rare. Molly, you're adorable. Don't call me adorable. It makes me sound like a child. He leaned closer, and suddenly the space between us seemed tiny. You are adorable, and brave, and stronger than you realize. Pause. But yes, you're a good girl, and there's nothing wrong with that. I was about to respond when Louis's voice over the radio cut through the moment. Boss, we've got a situation. Steve Graham on the main floor. Vincent tensed immediately. How did he get in? A member brought him as a guest. He's looking for someone. I felt panic hit me like a punch. Vincent looked at me and his expression had completely changed, from relaxed to dangerously focused. Molly, we need to leave. Now. Why? Steve's here. My heart stopped. How? Doesn't matter. Come on. Back exit. He pulled me from the sofa, and we started moving quickly through the club's side corridors. My heart was beating so hard I could hear the blood pulsing in my ears. We were almost at the exit when I heard it. Molly? Steve's voice echoed through the hallway. He'd seen something. Someone. A woman's silhouette that must have looked like me. Vincent didn't hesitate. He pushed me into a small, dark private room, entering behind me and locking the door with a soft click. The space was tiny, we barely fit, and suddenly we were pressed against each other, my heavy breathing hitting against his chest. Did he see me? I whispered, fear making my voice tremble. Vincent was listening to the sounds outside, Completely still. Don't know. Stay quiet. Sorry, I shouldn't have asked to go out. The words came out in a miserable whisper. He looked down, and even in the darkness I could see the intensity in his gaze. Don't apologize. You deserve to get out. We were so close I could feel his warmth, could feel every breath, every beat of his heart against mine. Vincent. His hand came up, touching my face with that gentleness that contrasted so much with everything else about him. Are you okay? I'm scared. I'll protect you. Always. The moment hung suspended, loaded with everything we weren't saying. The voices outside continued for a few more seconds, and then moved away, disappearing completely. Vincent checked through the crack in the door before turning to me. He's gone. Let's go. We left through the secret exit, a corridor that led directly to the private garage. No one saw us. No one knew we'd been there. Back at the hotel, I was still shaking. Vincent took me straight to the penthouse, and only when we were safe behind locked doors could I finally speak. How did he find me? My voice came out louder than I intended. He didn't find you. He went to the club by chance. His luck. Our bad luck. Vincent poured 2 glasses of whiskey, handing me one. I took a large sip, feeling the liquid burn going down my throat. What if he comes back? He's banned now. I guarantee it. But what if he finds out I'm with you? Vincent looked at me over his glass, and there was something dangerous in his gaze now. He won't. And if he does, I'll deal with him. How? The way I deal with all threats. Pause. But you don't need to worry about the details. I put the glass on the table, feeling my hands still shaking. Vincent, thank you, again, for protecting me. He set his own glass aside and walked over to me, his hands resting on my shoulders. Always, princess. And in that moment, with his hands warm on my shoulders and his eyes fixed on mine, I realized Louis was right. Something was happening between us. Something inevitable and scary and completely out of my control. And for the first time, I wasn't sure I wanted to fight it. What do you think? Should our protagonist fight what she feels? Or should she just surrender to her love? Chapter 5. Feelings and Virginia finds out.
I choose my life.
The weeks that followed were the strangest and simultaneously the most natural of my life. Something was changing between me and Vincent. Something neither of us was willing to name out loud, but that was present in every prolonged look, in every touch that lasted a second longer than necessary, in every comfortable silence that stretched between us like an unspoken promise. The dinners at the penthouse stopped being just casual entertainment and transformed into something intimate and loaded with meaning. The conversations deepened each night, exploring territories I'd never shared with anyone before. We talked about fears and dreams, about regrets and hopes, about the versions of ourselves we'd left behind, and the ones we were still trying to discover. Vincent started teaching me about his business, not the shady and morally questionable details, but the structure, the strategy, the way to build something from nothing. He showed me spreadsheets and projects, explained financial decisions and investments, and was genuinely impressed when I asked intelligent questions or suggested alternatives he hadn't considered. You have a talent for this, he said one night, after I spent an hour analyzing an expansion project for one of his hotels and pointed out 3 potential flaws in the planning. The admiration in his voice was real and made me feel proud in a way no compliment from my mother ever had. And I, by some inexplicable miracle, could make Vincent Mello laugh. Not that ironic, controlled smile he used as armor, but genuine laughter that lit up his face and made his eyes shine in a way Louis swore he'd never seen before. Sometimes it was something I said unintentionally. Sometimes it was a terrible joke. Sometimes it was just the way I reacted to something completely normal, as if it were the most fascinating thing in the world. The accidental touches became intentional. A hand on my back when we walked together, his fingers adjusting a strand of hair that had fallen on my face, my hand finding his when we watched something together. Each touch burned, leaving invisible marks on my skin that I could feel hours later. The sexual tension between us grew each day, thick and palpable in the air whenever we were in the same space. It was the kind of tension that made my breathing fail when he entered the room, that made my heart race when he got too close, that made every cell in my body vibrate with awareness whenever his eyes landed on me. It was on one of those nights, almost 3 weeks after I'd jumped into his car running from my own wedding, that everything almost changed. We were at the penthouse watching some old movie neither of us was really paying attention to. I was tired, relaxed in a way that only happened when I was with him, and without thinking much about it, I let my head rest on his shoulder. I felt Vincent tense for a second, just a second, before relaxing completely, and sliding his arm around my shoulders in a way that seemed like the most natural thing in the world. We stayed like that for long minutes, just existing together in the same space. And then, I couldn't hold back the question that was tormenting me anymore. Is this weird? My voice came out low, almost a whisper in the comfortable silence of the room. What? His voice reverberated in the chest where my head was resting. This. Us. Me hiding here. You protecting me. Becoming friends? I felt more than saw when he tilted his head to look at me. Are we friends? The question caught me off guard. I don't know. Are we? Vincent was silent for a long, heavy moment. I don't have friends, Molly. I have allies. Employees. Louis. But friends? No. Something in my chest tightened with that admission. Then what am I? Another pause. Even longer. Loaded with weight. Something different. Something I don't know how to name yet. I lifted my head from his shoulder, turning to face him for real. We were too close. So close I could see the small golden flecks in his brown eyes. So close I could feel his breath brushing my face. I don't know what you are to me either. What do you want me to be? The question came out low, intense, loaded with everything we weren't saying. I felt my heart race, felt the heat rising up my face, felt every nerve ending in my body come alive. More than protector, more than friend. But I don't know if I can want that. Why? Because your world is dangerous. Because I'm running from one life to not fall into another complicated one. The words came out in a vulnerable whisper. Vincent raised his hand, his fingers tracing a soft line along my jaw in a way that made my stomach flip. Fair. Long pause. But what if I told you that you make me want to be less dangerous? My heart practically stopped. Seriously? You make me want normal things. Dinners without worry, conversations without hidden agendas, waking up and having a reason to smile. His voice was so low now I had to lean even closer to hear. You make me want to be a better person. The tears came without warning, hot and fast. Vincent, he wiped them away with his thumb, that soft, careful touch that broke me and fixed me at the same time. But I understand if you don't want this. I come with heavy baggage, and I come with a crazy family and a stalker ex-fiancé. We both have baggage. My voice came out shaky but determined. Vincent leaned closer, so close our lips were just centimeters apart, so close I could feel his warmth enveloping every inch of me. For one infinite moment, I thought he was going to kiss me, desperately wanted him to kiss me, but then he stopped, his forehead resting against mine, his eyes closed as if he were fighting something internal. Maybe when all this is over, we try? His voice came out hoarse, loaded with contained desire. Try what? Us. For real, without hiding, without running, just the two of us, seeing where this can go. I felt my heart swell in my chest. I'd like that. Then it's a promise. He pulled away, creating safe distance between us again. But the promise hung in the air like something solid and real. Meanwhile, on the other side of the city, in a cold, impersonal corporate office, Virginia Cooper was having a conversation that would change everything. The private investigator was standing in front of her desk, holding a folder with an expression that was a mix of triumph and apprehension. Virginia stared at him with that icy intensity that made grown men shrink. Mrs. Cooper, I found something. Virginia leaned forward, her hands clasped on the desk. Finally, where is my daughter? I don't know the exact location, but she was seen entering a club owned by Vincent Mello. The name fell in the air like a bomb. Virginia went completely still, only her eyes narrowing dangerously. Vincent Mello, the mob boss. Yes, ma'am. Apparently she's with him. Virginia stood up so abruptly the chair scraped on the floor with a sharp sound. My daughter is with a criminal? It appears so, ma'am. Virginia grabbed her purse with stiff, controlled movements, the kind of control that came before an explosion. I'm going to destroy him. 2 hours later, she was at the entrance to Vincent's hotel, and the security guards were trying politely but firmly to block her passage. I'm sorry, ma'am, but this is a private establishment and I am Virginia Cooper. Her voice cut through the air like a sharp blade. And my daughter is here. Let me in or I'll call the police and make a scene that will be in all the papers tomorrow. One of the guards murmured something into the radio, and seconds later Louis's voice responded. Boss, we have a problem. Virginia Cooper is at the entrance demanding to come in. At the penthouse, I was with Vincent when we heard the message. I felt all the blood drain from my face. My mom? Here? Vincent tensed, but his voice came out calm. She found out. Pause. Do you want to talk to her? I don't know. Panic was starting to take over. That old deep fear of disappointing Virginia Cooper, of facing her fury. Vincent held my face in his hands, forcing me to look at him. I can send her away, but eventually you'll have to confront this. Confront her. I took a deep breath, feeling my heart hammering against my ribs. Send her up. Are you sure? No, but it needs to happen. Minutes later, the elevator doors opened, and Virginia Cooper entered the penthouse like a perfectly dressed and absolutely furious storm. Molly Ann Cooper, do you have any idea what you've done? Something in me stiffened, that new courage Vincent had helped cultivate emerging when I needed it most. I ran from a wedding I didn't want, and hid out with a criminal? Virginia practically screamed. Vincent stepped forward, his voice low but loaded with danger. Mrs. Cooper, I suggest you control your tone. Virginia turned to him with flaming eyes. You kidnapped my daughter. I didn't kidnap anyone. She jumped into my car running away. I offered refuge. His voice remained calm, controlled, but there was steel underneath. Refuge? You're keeping her here against her will. Something in me exploded. He's not keeping me. I chose to stay. Virginia turned to me, and for the first time in my life, I saw genuine shock on her face. You don't get to choose. You're coming home now. And it was in that moment that everything changed. In that moment, I found my real voice. No. The silence that followed was absolute. Virginia stared at me as if she'd never seen me before. What? I said, no, Mom. I'm not marrying Steve. I'm not going back to the life you planned without consulting me. I'm going to live my life by my own rules. And what is this life? Hiding out with a criminal? He protected me when you forced me into a wedding I didn't want. Each word came out stronger, more certain. He gave me choice when you never did. I did what was best for the family. You did what was best for your status. You don't care about me, only about the Cooper family reputation. And then, to my absolute shock, I saw tears in my mother's eyes. Virginia Cooper, who never cried, who never showed weakness, had tears running down her perfectly made-up face. I care about you. Her voice came out broken. I felt my own tears start. Then let me choose. For the first time in my life, let me choose. The silence stretched, heavy and loaded. Virginia looked from me to Vincent and back to me. When she finally spoke to him, her voice was controlled again, but there was something different in it. Mom, if anything happens to her, I will destroy you. Vincent didn't waver. Nothing will happen. I guarantee it with my life. Virginia looked at me for a long moment. Are you sure about this? About him? And I realized I was, completely. I'm more sure about him than I ever was about Steve. My mother sighed, a sound of defeat I never thought I'd hear from her. Okay, you stay, but you call me every day. I need to know you're okay. Okay, Mom. Virginia walked to the door, but stopped before leaving, looking back one last time. You've grown up, Molly. I just wish it had been in a different way. And then she was gone. The moment the elevator doors closed, I collapsed. All the emotions, all the fear, all the adrenaline hit me at once, and I just broke down in tears. Vincent caught me before I could actually fall, pulling me against his chest in a firm, secure embrace. You were incredible, he murmured against my hair. I never did that, never challenged her. I sobbed against his chest. And you did it perfectly. He held me tighter. You were brave and strong, and I'm so proud of you. And there, in Vincent Mello's arms, crying from relief and exhaustion, and something that could be happiness, I realized I'd finally taken the second step. First I'd run, now I'd fought. And for the first time in my life, I felt truly free. I'll admit to you guys, I think this chapter had one of the most intense confrontation scenes I've ever written. Chapter 6, Steve Threatens and Protection.
Don't touch her.
The days following the confrontation with my mother brought a strange feeling of peace mixed with apprehension. Virginia had kept her word, and I called her every day, short and still somewhat tense conversations, but ones that gradually started to seem less like performances and more real. She asked questions about how I was, what I was doing, and for the first time in my life, seemed genuinely interested in the answers, instead of just looking for flaws to correct. Vincent noticed the change in me, the way I walked a little more upright, smiled a little more easily, spoke with a little more confidence. He didn't say anything directly, but I saw it in his eyes, in that way he had of looking at me as if he were watching something precious unfolding right in front of him. It was on one of those quiet afternoons, when I was in the library lost in a book, that my phone rang with an unknown number. Normally I would ignore it, but something made me answer. Molly, stop this. Come back to me. Steve's voice hit me like ice water. I was completely paralyzed, the book slipping from my fingers and falling to the floor with a dull thud. We hadn't spoken since the wedding day, since I'd run out the back door of the church, and hearing his voice now brought back all the panic and claustrophobia I'd felt during those months of forced engagement. No, Steve, it's over. My voice came out firmer than I expected, surprising even myself. You left me at the altar. You humiliated me in front of everyone. His voice was loaded with barely contained anger, that cold, controlled anger that always scared me more than shouting. You only care about your reputation, not about me, I responded, feeling my own anger grow in my chest. I love you, he practically screamed, and the sound was so fake I almost laughed. You don't even know what love is, Steve. You want possession. You want a perfect doll who stays quiet and smiles at your business parties and never questions anything. Each word came out clearer, more certain. That's not love. It never was. And this criminal you're with, does he love you? Or is he using you? His voice dripped venom. He respects me, something you never did. I felt my hands shaking, but kept my voice steady. There was a long, heavy pause, and when Steve spoke again, there was something new in his voice, something that made my stomach tighten with fear. You're going to regret this, Molly. Big time. The call cut off. I sat in the library for several minutes, the phone still in my hand, my heart beating erratically in my chest. Something about the way he'd said those last words, the veiled promise of consequences, left me genuinely scared for the first time since I'd run away. I found Vincent at the penthouse half an hour later, and the moment he saw me, his expression changed completely. What happened? He was at my side in seconds, his hands on my shoulders, his eyes scanning my face. Steve called. My voice came out small. Vincent went completely still. Did he threaten you? Sort of. He said, I'm going to regret it. I repeated the words, and they sounded even more sinister out loud. Vincent's expression darkened in a way I'd never seen before, something dangerous and cold taking over his eyes. He turned immediately, pulling his phone from his pocket. Lewis, double security. Now. Steve Graham is an active threat. I heard Louis's voice on the other end, tense and professional. Understood, boss. How long? Indefinite. And I want reports every hour. Do you think he'd do something? I asked when Vincent hung up, feeling fear tighten my chest. Vincent pulled me closer, his hands resting on my face in a way that was both protective and comforting. Proud men do stupid things when they're rejected, and Steve is very proud. Pause. But he won't touch you. I guarantee it. 2 days later, we discovered exactly how far Steve was willing to go. It was rare for me to leave the hotel, but Vincent had insisted we needed to handle some things related to documents my mother was preparing, official paperwork declaring that I wasn't missing, but rather making a conscious choice of privacy. It was late afternoon, and we were heading back to the car when it happened. A black van stopped abruptly in front of us, completely blocking the path. The side doors opened, and 3 men jumped out, all big, all dressed in black, all moving with purpose directly toward us. What happened in the next few seconds was so fast my brain could barely process it. Vincent pushed me back with a force that made me stumble, putting his own body between me and the approaching men. Run! His voice came out in a sharp command, but before I could move, before I could process what was happening, Vincent's security guards appeared out of nowhere. They were men I'd seen around the hotel but never really paid attention to, and now they were moving with frightening military precision. The fight was brief and brutal. The men from the van tried to reach Vincent, tried to reach me, but the guards were faster, more trained, more efficient. In less than a minute, the 3 men were on the ground, immobilized, and Louis was running toward us with his face red from effort and anger. Boss! They're from Steve Graham. Louis practically spat the words. Found messages on one of their phones. Explicit orders to retrieve the bride. Vincent was breathing heavily, not from effort but from contained rage. He turned to one of the men immobilized on the ground, and the voice that came from him was so icy it made me shiver. Where is he? The man didn't respond, just turned his face to the side. Vincent crouched down, getting eye level with the man, and when he spoke again, each word dripped threat. You're going to tell me where Steve Graham is, or you're going to regret it. And when I say regret, I'm not talking about legal consequences. I'm talking about the kind of regret that makes you never able to sleep at night again. The man swallowed hard, fear finally appearing in his eyes. Barr, the monarch, he'll be there tonight. Vincent stood up, making a gesture to Louis. Take them. I don't want to see them again. Ever. Louis nodded to the other guards, who began dragging the men away. Vincent turned to me, and the anger on his face softened immediately when he saw the expression on mine. Are you okay? He was at my side again, his hands checking if I was hurt, his eyes scanning every inch of me. I'm in shock. My voice came out shaky. They tried to take me. I know. And they failed. And they'll keep failing. Vincent pulled me against his chest, and I could feel his heart beating hard against my cheek. Breathe. You're safe. I'm here. Later that night, after Vincent took me back to the hotel, and made sure I was safe in the penthouse with Lewis and 2 more guards at the door, he disappeared. I knew where he'd gone. I knew what he was going to do. And a part of me, the part that was still trying to be the good girl Molly who never broke rules, felt guilty for not trying to stop him. But the bigger part, the new part that was learning to fight for her own choices, knew that Steve needed to understand he couldn't just take me like I was his property. Vincent found Steve exactly where the man had said, in an expensive, discreet bar in the financial district. Steve was sitting alone at a table in the back, drinking something that probably cost more than most people made in a week, with that irritating expression of superiority I knew so well. When Vincent approached and simply sat in the chair across from him without invitation, Steve looked up with a mixture of surprise and poorly disguised fear. Vincent Mello, his voice came out uncertain. Vincent didn't waste time on pleasantries. You tried to take Molly. Grave mistake. Steve tried to recover his composure. straightening his shoulders and assuming that important man posture he always used. "She's my fiancée." Was, past tense, over. Vincent leaned back in his chair, but there was nothing relaxed about his posture. It was like watching a predator deciding when to attack. "And if you try to touch her again, I won't be nice." "You can't threaten me." Steve tried to sound confident, but his voice betrayed his fear. Vincent laughed, but it was a sound completely devoid of humor. Cold as ice. "Steve, I control half this city. I can make your life disappear with a single phone call." Long, heavy pause. "But I'm civilized, so I'll give you a choice. You give up on Molly, forget she exists, or I make you give up. By force." Steve swallowed hard, his fingers gripping the whiskey glass so tightly his knuckles turned white. "And if I don't give up?" Vincent stood up slowly, leaned over the table and whispered in Steve's ear with a voice so low and loaded with threat that it made the other man visibly tremble. "Then you find out why people in this city fear me. And when you do, you'll wish you'd made the right choice." He pulled away and left the bar without looking back, leaving Steve sitting there, trembling and pale. When Vincent returned to the hotel, it was almost midnight. He found me awake in the penthouse, unable to sleep, pacing back and forth like a caged animal. The moment the elevator doors opened and he entered, I ran toward him. "What did you do?" The words came out in an explosion of worry and fear. "Talk to him. Civilly." His voice was calm, as if he'd just returned from a normal business meeting. "And?" I needed to know, needed to understand. "He's going to leave you alone. I guarantee it." "How do you know?" My voice went up an octave. "Because I was persuasive." There was something dark in his smile. I felt a shiver of fear mixed with something else I couldn't name. "Did you hurt him?" "No, just scared him. A lot." Vincent walked to the bar and poured 2 glasses of whiskey, handing me one. He got the message. I downed the whiskey in one gulp, feeling it burn. "Thank you, but I hate that you had to do that. I do whatever it takes to protect you." He set his own glass aside and walked over to me, his hands resting on my shoulders. "Always. But what if he comes back? What if he tries again?" The panic was returning, the adrenaline from the day finally catching up with me. Vincent held my face in his hands, forcing me to look into his eyes. "He won't. And if he tries, I'm here, always. You understand? Always." The tears came without warning, hot and fast. "I don't deserve you." He wiped away the tears with his thumbs. That infinitely gentle touch. "You deserve everything." And then, for the first time since we met, he kissed my forehead, his lips warm and soft against my skin. But it wasn't enough. Something in me, something brave and new and tired of waiting, decided it wasn't enough. "What if I want more than a forehead kiss?" The words came out low, but firm. Vincent went completely still, his eyes widening slightly. "Molly, I want you, Vincent. For real." I placed my hands over his, still resting on my face. "I'm tired of waiting, tired of being afraid, tired of pretending I don't feel what I feel. Are you sure? Because if we do this, there's no going back." His voice came out hoarse, loaded with barely contained desire. I looked into his eyes, into those intense brown eyes that really saw me, that respected me, that made me want to be brave. I want there to be no going back. And finally, Vincent Mello really kissed me. It was like the whole world stopped. His lips met mine with an intensity that completely took my breath away, one hand sliding to the nape of my neck while the other settled on my waist, pulling me against him. The kiss was everything I'd imagined, and more. It was hunger and tenderness mixed together. It was promise and surrender at the same time. It was the culmination of weeks of tension and unspoken desire finally finding release. When we finally separated, we were both breathless, foreheads touching, hearts beating in unison. "You're mine now," he whispered against my lips. "Officially." "Possessive," I murmured, but I was smiling. "Extremely." "Got a problem with that?" I pulled him back for another kiss. Deeper, more desperate. "Absolutely nothing. I like it." And that night, everything changed. There was no going back, and I didn't want there to be. Chapter 7, Revelation and Relationship.
I'm not running.
The first thing I registered upon waking was the warmth. Not the suffocating, uncomfortable warmth that came from blankets that were too heavy, but the human, comforting warmth of another body close to mine, of strong arms wrapped around my waist, of soft, rhythmic breathing against my hair. The second thing I registered was that I definitely wasn't in my room. I opened my eyes slowly, blinking against the soft morning light coming through the huge glass windows, and realized I was in Vincent's room. In his room. In his bed. With him. The memories of the previous night came back in successive waves. each more vivid than the last, bringing with them a heat that rose up my neck and invaded my face. The kiss, the way he carried me, the tenderness mixed with passion, the way everything between us had finally materialized after weeks of growing tension. I turned my head slightly on the pillow and found Vincent already awake, propped up on one elbow, watching me with that intensity that was now so familiar, but still managed to make my heart race. There was something different in his gaze this morning, something softer, more open, as if some final barrier had fallen during the night. "Good morning, princess." His voice came out hoarse with sleep, loaded with a new intimacy that made my stomach flip. I felt my face heat up even more. "Good morning." My own voice came out small, almost shy, which was ridiculous considering what had happened between us. How long have you been awake watching me?" A slow smile curved his lips, long enough to confirm you're even more beautiful in the morning. Flatterer. But I was smiling, unable to help it. Honest. He extended his hand, his fingers tracing a soft line across my face, down my cheek to my chin. "How are you?" The question was simple, but the weight behind it was immense. He was asking if I regretted it, if I was okay, if I was still sure. "I'm good, better than good." I paused, biting my lip. Was that real? Vincent leaned closer, his forehead touching mine. Very real. And now, the question came out in a whisper, loaded with all the uncertainties that still hung between us. "Now you're mine." Officially. The way he said it, with that possessive, certain voice, should scare me, but instead it just made my heart race faster. "Possessive," I murmured, echoing our conversation from the night before. "Extremely. We've already established that." He smiled against my forehead. "Problem?" I slid my hand across his chest, feeling the muscles contract under my touch. "No, I like it." "Good, because I don't share." He pulled me closer, and we stayed like that for long minutes, just existing together in the comfortable silence of the morning, the world outside temporarily forgotten. That's when we heard quick footsteps approaching from outside, and then, before either of us could react, the bedroom door burst open. "Boss, we need to talk about the situation with the supplier of—" Louis stopped mid-sentence, his eyes widening as he processed the scene in front of him. I was in Vincent's bed, clearly wearing only his shirt that I'd picked up from the floor earlier, and Vincent was beside me, equally shirtless, with his arm still around my waist. There was absolutely no ambiguity about what had happened. "Finally!" Louis practically shouted, a huge smile spreading across his face. "I knew it! I knew it was just a matter of time! Louis!" Vincent and I shouted at the same time, me pulling the sheet up while Vincent threw a pillow at his brother. Louis dodged the pillow with a laugh. "What? You guys were obvious for weeks. I was starting to think it would never happen." He leaned against the doorframe, clearly with no intention of leaving. "Boss, you're smiling in the morning. This is historic. I need to document it. Louis, get out." Vincent's voice carried authority, but there was a touch of amusement underneath. "I'm happy for you guys. The boss deserves it." Louis winked at me. "You too, Molly. He's an idiot sometimes, but he's a good idiot." "Louis!" Vincent grabbed another pillow. Okay, I'm leaving." Louis raised his hands in surrender, still laughing. "But just for the record, I told you you had chemistry. Nobody ever listens to me." He started to close the door but stopped. "Oh, and boss, lock the door next time. There are things a brother doesn't need to see." The door closed completely, and I could hear Louis's laughter echoing down the hallway as he walked away. I looked at Vincent, who had his hand covering his eyes in something between embarrassment and amusement. "He's impossible. He's Louis." Vincent lowered his hand, looking at me with a genuine smile. "But he's not wrong. Were we obvious?" "Probably." I laughed, snuggling closer to him. "Louis said weeks ago that you smiled every time you talked about me. I didn't believe him. It was true." Vincent kissed my forehead. "You make me smile. You make me want to be better. You make me feel things I swore I'd never feel again." The words hit me square in the chest, heavy with meaning. "Vincent, I know it's early. I know all this is crazy and fast and probably insane." He looked into my eyes, and there was a vulnerability there I rarely saw. "But I don't care. You're mine now, and I'm going to protect this. Protect us. I want that too," I whispered, emotion tightening my throat. "I want us." We stayed like that for a while longer before the reality of the outside world came knocking again. Literally, with Louis shouting from the hallway that we had to see the news immediately. We got dressed quickly, me grabbing borrowed clothes from Vincent's closet because mine were still scattered on the floor, and went to the penthouse living room where Louis was holding the tablet with a serious expression on his face. "Steve didn't give up," he said without preamble, turning the tablet toward us. My stomach dropped when I saw the headline. "Cooper Iris in relationship with mob boss." Below were photos, clearly taken by hidden paparazzi, of me and Vincent together, leaving the hotel, getting into the car. A particularly intimate photo of the two of us on the penthouse terrace, So close it was impossible to deny the nature of our relationship. The article was sensationalist and full of speculation, painting Vincent as a dangerous criminal who had kidnapped the innocent heiress, and me as either a victim or accomplice, depending on the paragraph. Now everyone knows. My voice came out weak as I continued reading, seeing my private life being dissected for public entertainment. Vincent took the tablet from my hand and set it aside, making me look at him. So what? So what that my reputation, my family, everything is going to... I couldn't finish the sentence. Panic starting to tighten my chest. Molly, you ran away from a wedding. Your reputation was already tarnished. He held my face in his hands, forcing me to maintain eye contact. But if you want to hide, we hide. If you want to come out, we come out. Your choice. Always your choice. The way he said it, giving me the power of decision, reminding me it was my life and my choice, gave me the courage I needed. I want to come out. I'm tired of hiding, tired of worrying about what others think. Vincent smiled, and it was that genuine, rare smile Louis had said was just for me. Then we come out, and the world can deal with it. That's when my phone rang, my mother's name flashing on the screen. I took a deep breath before answering, prepared for another battle. Molly, the news. Is it true? You and Vincent? My mother's voice didn't sound furious as I expected, just tired. Yes, Mom, it's true. I love him. The words came out more easily than I imagined, and when I looked at Vincent as I said them, I saw something light up in his eyes. There was a long silence on the other end of the line, and then my mother sighed. Does he make you happy? The question caught me completely off guard. Happier than anyone else ever has. Then, okay, I accept. I almost dropped the phone. Seriously? You chose Molly. And for the first time, I see you truly happy. I see you fighting for what you want, making your own decisions, being strong. Her voice became softer. You're becoming the woman I always knew you could be. I'm sorry for trying to control it for so long. The tears came without warning. Mom and Molly, bring him to dinner. I want to properly meet the man who stole my daughter's heart. There was a touch of humor in her voice now, and who's apparently in all the headlines. Okay, I'll talk to him. Good. And Molly, I'm sorry for everything, for forcing the wedding with Steve, for not listening to you, for putting the family's expectations above your happiness. You deserve to choose your own life. You always deserved it. The words I'd waited to hear my whole life finally came, and it was like an enormous weight had been lifted from my shoulders. Thank you, Mom. When I hung up, Vincent was watching me with that soft expression he reserved only for me. Everything okay? More than okay. My mom wants to meet you. Formal dinner at the Cooper Mansion. I paused. Would you be up for it? I'd face an army for you. A dinner with your mother seems easy in comparison. He pulled me into a hug, and I allowed myself to relax completely against him. We'll go together, as a couple, officially. Louis, who had been discreetly in the corner of the room during the call, chose this moment to intervene. So you guys are really going public, boss. You know what that means, right? Everyone will know. Your rivals, your allies, everyone will know Molly is your weak spot. Vincent held me tighter, his voice coming out firm and determined. Let them know, and let them also know that if anyone touches her, they won't live to regret it. The statement should scare me, but instead it just made me feel protected, valued, loved. I was with a man who wasn't afraid to show the world I was important to him, who was willing to protect me with everything he had, who saw me as a priority and not as a secret. You two are ridiculously cute, Louis commented, but he was smiling. And terrifying, but mainly cute. I looked at Vincent, at this man who had entered my life in the most unexpected way possible, who had given me shelter when I needed it, who had taught me to fight, who had shown me I deserved to choose. And I realized Louis was right about one thing. It was love. Fast, crazy, unexpected, but definitely love. And for the first time in my life, I had chosen this. I had chosen him. I had chosen us. And I didn't regret it one bit. Chapter 8. Dinner with Virginia and Steve's final confrontation.
It's over, Steve.
The Cooper Mansion was exactly as I remembered it, imposing and cold even under the golden light of late afternoon. Enormous white columns flanked the entrance, perfectly manicured gardens stretched out on all sides, and the overall feeling was of old wealth and unwavering tradition. I'd grown up here, spent my whole life in these elegant, suffocating rooms, but now, returning for the first time since I'd run from my wedding, the place seemed different, smaller, somehow, less intimidating, or maybe it was me who had changed. Vincent parked the car in the circular driveway, and for a moment, we just sat there, the tension palpable in the air between us. I could see from the rigidity in his shoulders, from the way his fingers gripped the steering wheel a little tighter than necessary, that he was nervous, even though he'd never admitted out loud. Vincent Mello, the man who commanded half the city without blinking, was nervous about having dinner with my mother. "Are you okay?" I asked, placing my hand over his. He looked at me, and for a moment the mask of control fell, revealing the genuine concern underneath. I face criminals, dangerous rivals, situations that could kill me without hesitation, but officially meeting the mother of the woman I love? He let out a short, humorless laugh. That's scary in a completely different way. My heart skipped in my chest, hearing those words so casually, as if he hadn't even realized what he'd said. You just said you love me." Vincent went completely still, processing his own words, and then a slow, genuine smile curved his lips. "I did, and it's true. I love you, Molly Cooper, completely, irrevocably, in a way that scares me and completes me at the same time." The tears came without warning, hot and fast. "I love you too, so much that sometimes I can't breathe right when I think about it." He leaned in, capturing my lips in a soft kiss full of promise. "Then let's do this together. Let's face your mother. Let's come out publicly with our relationship. Let's build something real. Together, together," I repeated, feeling the words settle in my chest like something solid and true. We got out of the car and walked hand in hand to the front door. The butler, the same one who'd been there since I was a child, opened the door with a carefully neutral expression, but I saw the slight tremor of surprise in his eyes when he saw Vincent at my side. News traveled fast, apparently, and everyone in the house probably already knew exactly who the man who had stolen the Cooper heiress was. My mother was waiting for us in the formal living room, the one with the huge fireplace and family portraits dating back generations. She was sitting in her favorite armchair, her back perfectly straight, her hands delicately clasped in her lap, every inch the Cooper matriarch. But when she saw us enter, when her eyes landed on me and then on Vincent, I saw something soften in her face. "Molly," she stood up, walking toward me with measured steps. "Are you well?" "I am, Mom. Better than I've been in a long time." I let go of Vincent's hand just long enough to hug my mother, feeling her initial rigidity melt into something more genuine. When we separated, Virginia turned to Vincent, and the assessment in her eyes was intense and calculated. "Mr. Mello, thank you for accepting my invitation." Vincent extended his hand, and I saw the moment he decided to be completely honest instead of charming or evasive. "Mrs. Cooper, thank you for receiving me in your home. I know the circumstances are unusual." Virginia shook his hand briefly before gesturing to the sofas. "We'll have dinner soon, but first I'd like to talk." "Please, sit." We sat side by side on the sofa, and Vincent kept my hand firmly intertwined with his, a gesture of unity and support that didn't go unnoticed by my mother's sharp eyes. "So, Mr. Mello," Virginia began, her voice polite but loaded with purpose, "what exactly do you do?" Vincent didn't waver. "I manage entertainment businesses, hotels, nightclubs, some investments in properties and urban development, and the mob part?" The question came direct, without beating around the bush, typically Virginia Cooper. I felt Vincent squeeze my hand lightly before responding with the same brutal honesty. "I have connections, and I operate in areas some would consider morally gray, but I've never hurt innocents, never entered businesses that harm people who don't deserve it, and I always keep my word." Virginia studied him for a long moment, her eyes scanning his face as if she could read every hidden secret. "And my daughter? Where does she fit into this dangerous world of yours?" "She is my world." The answer came quick and firm, without hesitation. "Molly is the most precious thing in my life. I protect her with everything I have, with everything I am. No one touches her. No one hurts her. That's non-negotiable." Something changed in my mother's face, a reluctant approval mixed with something that could be respect. "Good, because if you hurt her, if you allow anything to happen to her, I will hunt you down, and I don't care how powerful or dangerous you are. No one hurts my daughter." Vincent smiled, and there was genuine appreciation in the smile. Fair. I'd expect nothing less from her mother. I looked between the two of them, feeling something warm in my chest. My mother was accepting, really accepting, not just tolerating, but genuinely approving. Dinner was served in the formal dining room, and the conversation flowed surprisingly well. Vincent was polite, but not subservient, honest but not offensive, and I could see my mother gradually relaxing, asking questions about his business, about his plans, about how we intended to handle the public exposure of the relationship. We were in the middle of the main course when it happened. The dining room door burst open, slamming against the wall with a noise that made everyone jump. Steve Graham entered like a storm, his face red with rage and probably alcohol, his eyes fixed on me with an intensity that made me freeze. "Molly! You can't do this to me!" he practically screamed, completely ignoring my mother and Vincent. I stood up from my chair, feeling anger explode in my chest. "Steve, get out. You weren't invited. I love you. We were supposed to get married. You owe me this." He took a step in my direction, and immediately Vincent was on his feet, positioning himself between us with frightening fluidity. "You don't love me. You love the idea of me. You love having a perfect trophy wife who never questions anything," I screamed back, all the months of frustration finally finding voice. Vincent said nothing, but his presence was protection enough, his body forming a solid barrier between me and Steve. "And you're going to make me leave? In front of her family?" Steve challenged, looking at Vincent with false bravado. "If necessary," Vincent responded, his voice low but loaded with real threat. That's when my mother stood up, and the voice that came from her was pure steel covered in ice. "Steve Graham, get out of my house. Now!" Steve turned to her, shocked. "Mrs. Cooper, you humiliated my daughter." Virginia cut him off, each word sharp as a blade. "You treated her like property, like something to be traded between families as if we were still in the 19th century. I was wrong to support this marriage, to pressure my daughter into something she clearly didn't want. But that mistake ends now." She walked to the door, opening it completely. "Now get out before I call security and have you removed by force." Steve looked between us, processing that he'd completely lost, that not even Virginia Cooper was on his side. "You're all going to regret this, all of you." "Empty threats from a small man," Vincent said calmly. "Leave, Graham, while you can still leave with dignity." Steve shot us one last look of pure hatred before turning and leaving, slamming the door behind him hard enough to make the paintings on the wall shake. The silence that followed was absolute. Slowly, I sank back into my chair, my hands trembling with adrenaline and relief. Vincent was at my side immediately, his hand on my back, anchoring me. My mother returned to her own chair with the same composure as always, but when she spoke, there was something different in her voice. "You chose well, Molly." I looked at her, surprised. "Vincent is intense, dangerous, probably. Definitely not what I imagined for you." She paused, looking directly at me. "But he clearly loves you, and more importantly, he respects you, sees you as an equal, not as property. That's more than Steve Graham would ever do." The tears came again, but this time they were from pure relief. "Thank you, Mom, for understanding, for supporting me." Virginia smiled, and it was a genuine smile, the kind I rarely saw. "You're my daughter, and seeing you happy, seeing you strong and making your own choices, is all a mother really wants." She turned to Vincent. "Take care of her, always," Vincent responded without hesitation. "That's a promise." The rest of dinner passed in a completely different atmosphere, lighter, more real. My mother told stories from my childhood that made Vincent laugh, and he shared some carefully edited stories about his own business that made my mother shake her head with reluctant amusement. When we finally said our goodbyes and walked back to the car, I felt like an enormous weight had been lifted from my shoulders. I'd faced Steve for the last time. I had my mother's approval. I had Vincent at my side. "You were incredible in there," Vincent said as we drove back to the hotel, my hand intertwined with his over the center console. "We were incredible," I corrected. "Together." He lifted my hand to his lips, kissing my fingers softly. "Together, always." And as I watched the city lights pass by the window, Vincent driving with one hand while holding mine with the other, I realized I'd finally found my place. Not in the Cooper mansion with all its traditions and expectations, not in an arranged marriage with a man who never loved me, but here, with this unlikely man who had entered my life in the most chaotic way possible and had shown me what it was to be truly seen, truly valued, truly loved. The runaway bride had found her home, and there was no place in the world I'd rather be. Chapter 9. Happy Ending and New Beginning.
Yes, forever.
7 months had passed as if they were simultaneously the blink of an eye and an entire eternity. 7 months since I'd jumped into that car dressed as a bride, running from a life I never wanted. 7 months since Vincent Mello had looked at me with that mix of surprise and amusement, and had decided to help me instead of turning me in. 7 months since everything had changed. The life we built together was different from anything I'd imagined, but it was infinitely better than any fantasy. Vincent had kept his promise to teach me to fight, to help me build something of my own, and to my own surprise, I discovered I had a talent for his business. Not the shady, morally questionable part, but the legitimate administration of the hotels, people management, expansion strategy. He put me as operations manager of one of the smaller hotels, a pilot project to see if I really had the knack for it, and in 3 months, I'd increased occupancy by 20% and reduced operational costs without compromising service quality. Vincent was so proud he practically glowed when he presented the results to Louis. "You're a natural at this," he said one night, after we closed a particularly difficult deal with a group of investors. We were at the penthouse, celebrating with champagne, and the pride in his eyes warmed me more than any drink could. "I learned from the best," I replied, snuggling beside him on the sofa. "Lie, this is pure talent." He kissed my forehead. "You were just waiting for the right opportunity to shine." Life settled into a comfortable but exciting routine. We worked together during the day, had dinner together every night, and slowly the hotel that had started as my hiding place transformed into my home. My mother and I rebuilt our relationship, stronger and more honest than it had ever been. Hazel became a constant presence, loving every second of the chaos my life had become, and reminding everyone that she was the one who had encouraged me to run in the first place. It was on a spring evening, exactly 7 months after that crazy day at the church, that Vincent took me to the penthouse terrace, the same terrace where we'd had so many important conversations, where I'd started falling in love with him without even realizing it, where we'd shared wine and vulnerability in equal parts. The city stretched out below us, an ocean of lights that twinkled like earthly stars. Vincent was quiet, more nervous than I'd seen him in months, and when he finally turned to face me, there was something different in his eyes. "Molly, you changed my life in ways I can't even explain properly." He took my hands, his fingers intertwined with mine. "You entered my car like a hurricane of white tulle and desperation, and since then nothing has been the same." I felt my heart start to race, a suspicion growing in my chest. "You taught me it's possible to be strong and gentle at the same time, that it's possible to trust without losing control, that it's possible to love without fear." He released one of my hands, reaching into his jacket pocket. "You made me want to be better, made me want to build something real, something that lasts." And then he knelt, and the whole world stopped. The velvet box that appeared in his hands opened, revealing the most beautiful ring I'd ever seen, delicate but stunning, exactly my style in a way that showed how well he knew me. "Molly Cooper, will you marry me? For real this time? Without running? Without drama, just the two of us choosing to spend the rest of our lives together?" The tears were already streaming down my face before I could even form words. "Yes, 1,000 times yes!" He slid the ring onto my finger, and then was on his feet, picking me up in his arms and spinning while I laughed and cried at the same time. When he put me back on the ground, he captured my lips in a kiss that promised forever, and I believed that promise with every fiber of my being. The wedding happened 2 months later, small and intimate exactly as we wanted. There weren't hundreds of guests we barely knew. There wasn't excessive pomp or performances for the cameras. Just the people who really mattered, gathered in a small, beautiful chapel, witnessing as Vincent and I promised our lives to each other. Louis was the best man, of course, and his speech at the reception had everyone laughing until it hurt. I never thought I'd see the day my brother would get married, and I definitely never imagined it would be with a bride who literally jumped into his car running from another wedding. He raised his champagne glass. "But life is crazy, and sometimes the best things come from the most absurd situations. Vincent, you found someone who makes you laugh, who challenges you, who makes you want to be better. And Molly, you found someone who sees you, who respects you, who loves you exactly as you are. You both deserve all the happiness in the world." Everyone toasted, and I looked at Vincent through happy tears, seeing the same love reflected back at me. At the reception, Hazel pulled me aside, her eyes shining with emotion. "You did it. You ran and found real love. Thanks to you, for encouraging me to run." I hugged my best friend tightly, for reminding me I deserved to choose. "You're welcome. Now be happy. You deserve it more than anyone I know." Later, when the party was winding down and guests were starting to leave, Vincent took me back to the penthouse terrace, the same place where he'd proposed, where we'd shared so many important moments. "So," I said, leaning against him as we looked at the city, "from runaway bride to wife, what a journey, the best journey of my life." He pulled me closer, kissing the top of my head. "Even with all the drama? With Steve, with the headlines, with everything, especially because of the drama, because it brought you to me." He turned me to face him. "I still can't believe you jumped into my car that day. I still can't believe you took me in instead of turning me in. How could I not? You begged with those desperate, honest eyes, and something in me knew you were going to change everything." He touched my face with that tenderness that always melted me. "And you did. Completely. You made me want to be brave. For the first time in my life, you made me feel like I could choose my own path. And you made me want to be better. Made me feel again." He kissed me softly. "So we're mutual saviors." Exactly. We stood there, embraced under the stars, and I thought about the whole journey that had brought me here. I'd run from a wedding I didn't want. I'd jumped into a car I didn't know. I'd begged a dangerous stranger not to turn me in. And that stranger had become my protector, my teacher, my partner, my love, my husband. Two completely opposite worlds had collided on that crazy day. The good girl princess who always followed the rules, and the big bad wolf who made his own laws. But together, we'd found something neither of us knew we were looking for. We'd found home in each other. And as the city glowed below us and the future stretched ahead full of possibilities, I knew with absolute certainty I'd made the right choice. Sometimes the best stories start with a desperate escape and end with an unlikely love. Molly and Vincent, runaway bride and mob boss, forever. And now I'm going to tell you the behind the scenes of this video. I confess this story was born from a silly question. What if a bride literally jumped into the wrong car running from the altar? The image of Molly tripping on her dress and falling into Vincent's car made me laugh alone for days. Vincent was inspired by those men who control entire empires, but completely melt for one person. I wanted someone dangerous, yes, but who had that obsessive protective side that makes me sigh. Louis? Oh, Louis just happened. He invaded the story in Chapter 1 and refused to leave. Comic characters have that power. The real challenge was maintaining balance. Enough tension to hook you, but lightness to not weigh it down. Dark romance needs to breathe between the shadows. Favorite scene? Her first "I'm begging you." Everything changed there. I hope you loved reading as much as I loved writing. With love, Lena. And to watch another video, click on the video showing up on your screen now to follow another incredible story.